Hey, this is Kate Curtis, Man About Town. Just a quick message before we start here. You can hear that's the AC. If I turn that off, I'll die. This is the 12th episode. It's crazy that I've been doing this for a year. Yeah. Wild. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. And look forward to the next year of the podcast. I'm going to keep doing this. Because it's just getting into the good stuff. Alright, that's it. This one's going to be a fun one. Just a collection of unorganized documents. But it will still be canon, so watch out for that. Anyway, let's start.
In the year 2087, a Freedom of Information request resulted in the declassification of nearly 100,000 documents. These documents revealed the existence of a secret division formed as a skunkworks in the Central Intelligence Agency. This organization is known as the AORD and is still active to this day. The scope of the declassified documents covers the years of 1987 to 2037 and goes a long way to explaining the events that unfolded at that time, as well as the direction the path of history has taken as a result. Despite heavy redactions and documents left out entirely, the FOI release was one of the most shocking collections of data ever revealed to the public. These are those documents.
Two of control from director. Subject: New Communique Organization Protocol. As you know, we are required by new regulatory laws to maintain an in-depth record of any official communication from the Directorate of Science and Technology. As you know, the AORD was made as a division of the Directorate to maintain our flexibility and to apply top-secret level clearance to every one of the division's actions. Unfortunately, this means the new transparency requirements apply to us as well. Considering how misguided it would be to follow this rule normally, I am hereby making revision to the organization protocol for official communiques. Shuffle them. Encrypt them, re-encrypt them, shuffle them, and then spread them around. I don't care if this makes it difficult for our officers to double-check the details of their orders. We can't risk having all these messages in one place, and certainly not in order. Keep in mind the contents when you bury them as well. Don't forget that not all of these letters come from the... 2. Recruitment Officer, Langley, Virginia. From Training Facility Overseer. Subject: An idea for finding new competence among the recruits. We're in dire need of more AC competent officers and analysts, so we've been thinking of ways to pull out the stops. Last night I came up with this. See attached picture. Notice anything strange about this bowl of fruit? Well, I know you will, but that's the trick. Only people who are AC competent will be able to notice it. Not sure how easy it will be to tell if they can see it. You might have to ham it up a bit, Ask them what they think of your painting and which one of the fruits stands out to them. Well, I'm sure you'll come up with something more subtle, but if they see the potato, send them our way. We need to get as many recruits through Maneuver 1 as we can before Project starts. 2. At control. From Case Officer Codename Spinner. Subject: Possible temporal distortion. I'm not sure how urgent this is, as I don't actually know how long I've been looking into this, but I'm fairly sure we're stuck in some kind of time loop. You ought to know where we are and what we're doing, so you know what the limitations will be. But I figured I should at very least send out a memo just in case. If I'm right, you'll either not receive this at all, or you'll receive a whole lot of them. If it's the latter, I sure would appreciate if you could send someone over to extricate us from this little predicament. 2. Research Leader Doctor. From Research and Development Officer. Subject: Slight problem with quantum locking. A spoon from someone's lunch got quantum locked to the Earth. It's currently stuck in the air just next to the break room sink. We're able to bend it slightly, but we can't break it or move it. We tried taking a blowtorch to it, but when we melted a part of it off, it went straight down through the floor of the building. Not really sure what to do about this, so I'd really appreciate any ideas you might have. Sooner rather than later. We know it's locked to the Earth, but there's a non-zero chance it switches its locked state to a passing asteroid and causes some serious damage. Oh, and before you even think it, no, it never made it into the lab. It was always in the break room. Not sure what that means either, but I'm well aware it can't be good. So yeah, please respond as soon as you can. P.S. Sorry to interrupt your son's wedding, but we're sort of freaking out over here. General memo from the Directorate.
We've received countless messages from people throughout the division about this, and I'd like to clear the air. Yes, we know about the so-called Havana Syndrome. Yes, it is Russia doing it. Yes, we know how they're doing it. And no, I'm afraid we can't stop it from happening. We could. We have the ability to stop it, but we can't do it. If we were to dodge it, they'd know we've stepped into the same world they're in. And then they'll start picking up the pace on their research. If we block it, then Russia will know that we're fully aware of their Pudshid angel, and they'll know about our fallen eagle. And of course, if we hit them back, then they'll know we're not scared of their little magic tricks, and that bald bastard will figure out that we must have some aces up our sleeve. So no, we're not going to do anything yet. We'll hit them back eventually, I promise you. But for now, avoid standing next to windows, and if you start feeling your brain begin to vibrate, do your best to move out of the way. The same rules for getting out of sleep paralysis work for directed beams as well. Remember, the more pathetic we appear right now, the harder we'll be able to dance on them once we pull the rug. It's meine Zagen's Haversack. Also, we have no responsibility for ensuring that CIA employees injured by Russia's technology get the proper benefits. We send employment and pension checks. It's up to the VA to handle health care. I'm sure they're not doing a good job, but it isn't our department.
2. General receiving for the Directorate. From Head Analyst at Control. Subject. Further warning against allowing privately controlled anomaly. I beseech the Directorate once again to reverse the policy on letting American corporations maintain control over anomalous materials or places. If the Directorate would just allow me to present my findings, I could prove to you all that this isn't just a matter of politics, but a serious threat to national security. I understand many amongst leadership have misgivings about seizing property from currently innocent corporations, but I urge these individuals to consider the cost of indifference. To put it bluntly, if we don't nationalize these anomalies today, the companies will be selling them to our enemies tomorrow. These corporations have no loyalty to any nation-state, even under threat of violence. We have mountains of data that proves this point. Even the surface-level internet has mountains of data proving this point. As long as their only goal is profit, they can never be trusted with atypical technologies. Worse than illegal sales, they might become our next enemies. Half of the companies we've found to be in control of one or more anomalies don't even know what they have. For all we know, these Ivy Leaguers could be one step away from becoming acolytes or worshippers at the temple of... I earnestly don't understand how this is still up for debate. Please, please, please don't let private companies, beholden only to their stockholders and themselves, maintain control of paradigm-shifting atypical materials. The free market will be just fine with a few more publicly owned businesses, I assure you.
2. Of research control. From lead researcher Dr. Subject. Project Traveler update.
I'm pleased to report we finally had some amount of success, though it is quite limited. It seems even when implementing the AEI system, we just can't get around the brain's natural self-defense. We don't understand how it works exactly, but it's become abundantly clear that the human mind has some sort of natural barrier to prevent interlopers from causing unwanted influence. For this reason, it's been all but impossible to actually enter someone else's dreams without their explicit intent to allow it. That said, we already know that the human mind does let some things through. Otherwise, the entire AC manifold wouldn't be able to function. Keeping this in mind, I'd recently read about a cyber attack on the corporation. First, the attackers sent in a burst of messages, handshake requests to be exact, and each time one was sent, the server would naturally deny it, since it didn't come from a trusted source. However, it would still create a log of these messages, and within that log, the attackers slowly built up a few lines of code, with the hashed sections of handshake info that they knew would be archived. Of course, this code could tell the server to allow our attacker in, with admin privileges. I figured, why not try the same kind of idea on the brain?
It took a bit to design the initial assault waveforms, as we simply don't know how the mind would be cataloging this kind of information. Nor do we know how closely the target's dream space and the AC reception function are related. Still, even with our most tentative attempt, we did manage to get some quantifiable results. Unfortunately, we're still unable to invade the dream and steal unconscious information. But as a plus, we can now force a target into a state of sleep paralysis. I guess whatever defense system the brain has for dream invaders compensated for our intrusion by partially canceling the dream. As you can imagine, this could have some very interesting and potentially humorous applications. Imagine if Xi Jinping missed the G5 summit because he'd been having sleep paralysis every night for a month. That reminds me, our participants, the targets, have been able to see the attacker as if they were in the room with them. They were able to identify the specific individual out of a lineup 9 times out of 10. Luckily, this effect applies to however the attacker physically appears in the moment of intrusion, so we've been putting our attackers in a long black robe and a gaucho. I thought it would fit the build. Let me know what you think. We'll keep cracking at the mental firewall to see if we can actually sneak one of our hatmen into the target's dream space.
2. At control. From Case Officer Codename Spinner. Subject, possible temporal distortion. I'm not sure how urgent this is, as I don't actually know how long I've been looking into this, but I'm fairly sure we're stuck in some kind of time loop. You ought to know where we are and what we're doing, so you know what the limitations will be. But I figured I should at very least send out a memo just in case. If I'm right, you'll either not receive this at all, or you'll receive a whole lot of them. If it's the latter, I sure would appreciate if you could send someone over to extricate us from this little predicament. Memo from the Directorate to all AORD employees and associates.
We would like to remind everyone that there is no such thing as freedom of religion in the AORD. You're of course free to have faith in any of the traditional religions, i.e. Abrahamic, Buddhist, Hindu, etc. And even certain AEI faiths aren't off the table either. However, it is absolutely not acceptable for anyone within the agency, nor the United States of America as a whole, to worship at the temple of... Similarly, it is disallowed to pray to any subdimensional intelligence, of any intelligence level, without prior permission from control, and even then only for the purposes of research. I understand many of the instances of contraband religious iconography have been made or worn facetiously, as a joke, to mock the very idea of putting faith in such things. We state strongly that the intentions are of no importance. Anyone wearing, tattooing, building, reverently closing your eyes in front of, and especially speaking to, any object of dangerous faith will be terminated, not fired, terminated. To prevent any confusion, we have updated the protocols of every subdivision with a list of religions and spiritualities that are considered taboo. This list is likely to grow in the future as we discover more, so use your common sense when attempting to contact or avow fealty to any deity or demigod. Furthermore, if you notice any of your coworkers wearing or brandishing any forbidden symbols or speaking in forbidden languages, please report this to your supervisor, handler, or superior post-haste. Also, report any untoward physical changes in your coworkers. Are the whites of their eyes still white, or are they gray? Is their skin more sullen or supple? Is their skin starting to tighten or turn red? Do they smile at unusual times and for too long? All these may be signs of inappropriate faith and must be reported immediately for the safety of us all. Our responsibility is the security of these United States, and we can't ensure that if we've been taken over by worshippers.
Приходит тупой мальчик под кодовым именем. Пока никто не заметил, что я
Codename Dullboy reporting in. So far, no one has been able to tell I'm psychic, so I will be going ahead with Plan A. That is to say, it appears no one can tell. It is still very possible someone within the DSRI has already spotted me, but is playing coy. I'll say it doesn't seem like it. Everyone here is running around like chicken with head cut off. Putin wants them to turn the fallen angel on by the end of the year. Almost no one actually wants this to be done, as they are not sure whether or not the angel will have some emergency beacon that will contact its home planet, or wherever it actually came from.
Still, what Putin says goes, so they're doing their best to figure out how it's actually supposed to be activated, rather than pumping excessive energy into bits and pieces to see what they do. So far they have had negative luck, and 2 researchers have died from misfiring gravity thruster. They believe it likely this one must have some form of DNA screening for it to be powered on, so they are producing fake DNA samples at random to try and bypass. This will never work. Without an actual sample of the pilot's body, they are shooting in darkness. I don't know whether or not you have such a sample, but if you do, keep it close to chest. Also, please do not replicate this experiment. There is decent chance the activation of the craft will result in cataclysmic problems. There is non-zero chance that researchers are right, and it will call in mothership, perhaps causing unwinnable planetary war. So far, no action needed. Progress is very slow in this section. However, transferred scientists occasionally come from other projects, and they report things going well in other factors. Most are not particularly loose-lipped, but there is one who worked on something called somnisoidal life-form recreation. I don't know what this means, but from how he describes it, it seems terrifying and powerful. Something like being able to fight war while the soldiers are sleeping, and they're using humans to do experiments. I'll keep learning what I can, but I'm limited to traditional methods as long as I cannot let them know I have anomalous cognition. By the way, this implant seems to buzz sometimes when I get close to the angel. Not sure if it has AC controls trying to connect, or if it just spits out and waves for some other reason. But it really fucking hurts when it happens. I tell researchers I have migraines. So far they are not suspicious, but I would very much for the implant to be redone to avoid this problem. That is all for now. I'll hand over materials to Codename when there is opportunity. Transmission over.
To head analyst at control. From Case Officer Codename Milquetoast. Subject: update on the Minshen project.
My assets finally got back to me about Beijing's pocket dimension. From the sounds of it, they're doing very, very well. Alarmingly well. I wish I could get an actual scientist in there so I could know for sure how bad it is, but you know how it is with China. Best I can do is the cleaning crew and guards. Anyway, they've supposedly expanded the thing to nearly square kilometers. Assuming that's correct, and not the People's Republic feeding us bullshit, that would mean they're light years ahead of us. It's got like 7 different levels, which on its own makes absolutely no sense to me. How can they possibly stabilize an extra-dimensional space within another extra-dimensional space? How is this thing not collapsing? Once again, if this is true, it's bad news. And if it's not true, it's still bad news. We know for sure they've actually put together a pocket dimension, or at least they have access to one. What I'm saying is that they might not actually be making their own space loops. If they're poking holes into other places, or just accessing already existing extra-dimensional spaces, then we have a wholly different kind of problem in our hands. I've spent a lot of time here, and I'd like to think that China wouldn't be poking the dragon like that, but there's just no way to know right now, and, well, frankly, it makes more sense than them being that far ahead in dimensional manipulation. So yeah, if you don't hear from me, and there's reports about demons or monsters taking over northern China, that'll be why.
To Director, from Director. Subject: Five Eyes Alliance.
I understand your position considering your background working for MI6. However, I just can't sign off on bringing the other Five Eyes countries into the fold. For one, I just don't think we can trust Australia. Ever since those kids tried to break into the Pine Gap for their YouTube channel, there's been a lot of heat coming from the public over there. They don't like the level of control we have over them, and I'm certain that attitude is shared by Australian security intelligence. You've seen that look they give us. You've spent just as much time in the field as I have. The second we give them atypical technology, they're gonna forget their place. Even if they know we have more power than they ever could, as soon as they can do something impossible, they're gonna try to buck our control. With China claiming they have their own, now the last thing we need is to lose control of the Oceania. On top of that, can you imagine New Zealand approving experiments on human subjects? Get real. Now, if we're talking about a new alliance, with maybe just 2 or 3 eyes, we'll talk about Canada, then there might be something to go on.
As for the current proposal, I just don't think it's a good idea. All risk, not enough reward. As it is, if we find an anomaly in Australia or New Zealand, we can just walk over and take it. All we would really get is more manpower. I'm sure just including the UK, and maybe Canada, would be enough to cover our shortages. Now, alternatively, if you would sign off on my cloning proposal, that would work too. To Personnel Director from at Control. Subject, Special Officers. First off, I'd like to welcome you to your new position. It's been a long time coming for you to get the recognition you deserve, and I truly can't think of anyone better to be in charge of our personnel. Now on to the business. I do hope you've been warned about the Special Officers. I would imagine your predecessor would have made some documentation about it before he went on the wall. However, it's just as likely this would be the kind of thing he would never dare to write down. On the off chance that you're still in the dark about what I'm referring to, I'm sending a complete list of all of our special officers and a dossier on each of their peculiarities. Naturally, I'll have to send it in multiple parts thanks to this god-awful organization standard we have to employ, but the messengers should still be getting them to you all at around the same time. Normally, I'd tell you to burn the list after reading it, but I'm not technically allowed to say that anymore. Just use your best discretion, and make sure the important details are redacted before you save it. We might have to keep the files, but that doesn't mean they have to be completely readable, if you catch my drift. Anyway, best of luck, and please be careful. Codename Friendly, Special Officer. Friendly, real name, is a normal human man who joined the agency in 19... Since he was a child, though, he's had an imaginary friend, and the imaginary friend is measurably real. We discovered this during Friendly's psych eval, and when he claimed to be schizoaffective, but had almost none of the symptoms we would expect. He was greatly relieved to learn that he was perfectly healthy, and we promptly placed him into the field for the AORD. The imaginary friend, who is referred to as Philip, is described by Friendly as being a 7-foot-tall and 5-foot-wide biped covered in fur, with sharp teeth and horns. From Friendly's dictation of Philip's words, he's a kind of monster called a quar. Philip is apparently very bashful, and will often refuse to be interviewed, and Friendly becomes nervous and agitated when we try to get him to do it anyway. As you might expect, a case officer with a strong and visible monster at his side is a valuable asset. He is extremely capable in espionage, sabotage, and wet work, though he prefers to avoid the latter when possible. Philip has a hard time holding back, so anytime Friendly has to schwack somebody, he'll try to get it done himself so it doesn't look too unusual afterwards. So far, Friendly has shown no signs of causing incidental problems or complications. However, the previous personnel director did express some concern about whether or not Philip could be trusted. He is, after all, an intangible monster of unknown origin. He was always abundantly careful, though, and Friendly has been with us since the early days, so it's probably not anything of concern. That said, if you have a chance to learn more about Philip, you take it. Just make sure neither of them finds out. It'll be a tall order, since you won't really be able to tell when Philip is in the room with you. Trust your instincts. If it feels like someone's there, that probably means there is. Codename Dealer, Special Officer. Dealer, real name, was part of an early experiment, one that predates the AORD. Like most people involved in the early days like that, he seriously got the short end of the stick. I don't know if you know anything about Project Dinner Bell. I'd imagine not, but long story short, his experiment ended with him making a couple of covenants with subdimensional intelligences. Like I said, this was the early days. They didn't really know what they were messing with. They did have the foresight to bring some negotiators and contract experts, but, I mean, it's an infernal pact. It can only go so well. On the plus side, Dealer ended up with a few choice abilities. He can disappear in a puff of smoke a few times a day. If he does it too much, his lungs will fill up with the smoke. He can do divinations with coin flips with about a 2.5 DER rating, though of course it's still as bad at predicting the future as any other kind of divination. He's also got AP at a force level 5, however it's pretty flashy. It's all based on pyrokinesis. His fire only burns what he wants it to, though, so for electronic or mechanical sabotage, it's fantastic. He's got a few other little powers, like he only has to sleep 4 hours a night, but most of them won't help too much with the kind of field work he'll be doing. Even just those things are incredible, of course. He's practically a superhero. That, of course, leads me to the downside. For one, he's got a one-way ticket when he dies, and he knows it.
Real gloomy motherfucker, understandably. We're lucky he's got a strong sense of justice, or else he'd probably be wreaking havoc on us right now. Of course, that same sense of justice means you can only put him on certain missions, and some missions, you ought to know where I'm going with this, he just can't find out about. Only reason he's still working for us is because he believes the United States is a better bet for human rights than the other superpowers, i.e. Russia and China. He doesn't count Europe since, well, you know. His personal politics are a real driving force for him, too. He's a feel-the-burn kind of guy. That and his attitude puts him at odds with the other officers pretty often, as you'd imagine. It might seem kind of wacky to keep him in the agency, but he really is a good officer, especially considering everything he's been through. He was around right at the tail end of the MK project, so, well, frankly, it's amazing he hasn't opened a portal to hell in Langley. Definitely wasn't happy with the whole advanced interrogation thing, but since he was in the division at that point, he wrote it off as the normal agency being assholes, which, in his defense, is often true. On the plus side, as a little social justice warrior with demon blood in him, he really does relish putting the research subjects through the paces. Well, certain types of research subjects, if you catch my drift. Basically, be careful what he finds out, and keep him busy as much as you can. You'll never run out of things he'll be able to do, so make sure he's always on a mission. Any time he spends in headquarters is time he might be learning about what the tech division is working on. Other than that, try not to let his hippy-dippy commie views get to you. It's not the worst thing in the world to have somebody here with too much compassion. Honestly, if he ever stops calling for single-payer healthcare or universal basic income, that'll be a sign that they've taken over his body and it's time to call in a priest. Make sure it's a real one, too, not one from the church down the road.
2. From General Outgoing of the Directorate. Subject: the Association for the Finality of Mankind.
It seems our former associate from the research division has been getting busy under our noses. Turns out the 3% of scientists that think global warming is a hoax are card-carrying members of Dr. little doomsday cult. We managed to get a bit of intel when we ran into one of them by chance in Karachi. Of course, we couldn't bring him in alive, as they were former AORD, but the they used to self-terminate didn't take into account the non-organic materials on their body. There wasn't a whole lot on it, at least not a whole lot that Anubis was able to decrypt. We did, however, learn they've been spreading misinformation wherever they can. They support flat earthers, anti-vaxxers, oil lobbyists, and of course some of our old friends as well. I wouldn't imagine they'll have any associations with children or the Temple of... From what I understand of those two, their ideal world would end up with people being unable to die, which is exactly the opposite of what the AFM want. I know you said we have better things to worry about than a couple of egghead quacks trying to start the apocalypse, but we both know that won't still be the case if we continue to let them operate. We need to crack down, at least enough to keep them from growing. They're already trying to headhunt from retired case officers, and I imagine they're not just staying in America either. They're probably trying to swoop scientists away from the DSRI in China as well. At some point, they're going to be a serious threat, and they're already making things more difficult domestically. We don't have to pull all of our pieces from the game, but we should at least be looking into it. These aren't just quacks. They're legitimate scientists, and most of them, especially Dr., had very high clearance levels before they defected. If we keep our eyes off them for too long, they're going to get one of their plans to work, and that'll be all she wrote.
2. Receiving at the George Bush Center for Intelligence, Langley, Virginia. From Subject: found a strange kind of pamphlet.
Hey, I don't know if this is the right place to contact, but this is the only Contact Us page I could find for you guys. Idiot. I was picking up trash on the stretch of road my wife's church adopted, and I found this big booklet thing. It says something about ACAP training, maneuvers 2 through 10. It said it was top secret, and it had the whole CIA logo on it. Also said I'd suffer immediate consequences if I opened it, so I didn't. I know you probably won't believe that I didn't open it, but I swear to God I didn't. I didn't even tell my wife I found it. I just put it straight in the car before anyone else could find it. I just want to make sure my family and friends are safe, you know. Anyway, it said to mail the booklet back to CIA headquarters in Virginia, but can I really just send this thing through the mail? Do I have to send it first class, or what's the deal there? Also, I'm sure I know the answer to this, but can I get reimbursed for the shipping? This thing's like 4 pounds of paper. Anyway, let me know. I'm sure you already have it, but Just in case you have to pretend you don't, my phone number is...
2. At domestic control. From subject. Upcoming auction.
I've been tracing all known members of the Keepers of the... some of them well connected in wealthy circles. Cell chatter suggests there's some sort of event coming up. Probably involves anomalies. They call it an auction. Maybe codename. Maybe actual auction of anomalous materials. Succeeded in infiltrating network of auction host. No information on details of auction or any items to be auctioned, if any, but found guest list. Main problem. Some names on guest list are also names on DoD's protected list. Believe they are on protected list due to connections to weapons manufacturing and not actual importance. Auction date coming soon. Recommend eliminating all involved parties to avoid spread of privately controlled anomalies. Need permission to eliminate protected VIPs. Please remove these people from government protection before Friday.
2. General receptions at the Directorate. From subject. Control of the Middle East situation.
I'm sure you know this already, but Israel is starting to act like its own country again. This is, as it always has been, an enormous PR crisis, since those Israelis have never given up on taking over the entire area. And similarly, they've never given up on how much they hate brown people as well. Unfortunately, even the Palestinians have 4K cameras on their phones now, and the misinformation protocol can only do so much, especially considering how much the last 2 executive administrations relied on it. There's every chance we figure this out on our own, but we'd very much appreciate it if you could come up with a few ideas. At this point, we aren't against starting a new puppet state, probably Syria. But it would be great if we could just regain political control of Israel, since they already have so much of our funding and equipment. I understand we're still under the masquerade protocol, but it's really getting dire. The number of American citizens disillusioned with the government is getting precariously close to a majority. Yes, half of that number consists of people that have no idea what's actually happening and probably could be controlled to some extent, but the other half could become a serious threat in an instant. Especially with our opponents looking to destabilize us wherever they can. I obviously don't know exactly what kind of tricks you guys have up your sleeves, but I've been told the AORD is starting to snowball in terms of power and influence. If there's any kind of spooky shit you can do to fix the Middle East, now would be a great time to do it. Please come up with a few workable plans, and we'll talk about it if this whole thing doesn't blow over.
2. General receptions at the Directorate. From Head Analyst of Mainland Asia. Subject, blank.
They know. I don't know how long they've known, but they know. Russia will find out soon if they haven't already.
2. All members of control. From General Outgoing at the Directorate. Subject. Masquerade protocol is lifted.
Our opponents have learned of our work. We don't know the extent of the leak, nor how they got the information. Regardless, we will be lifting Masquerade protocol and instating Shadow Hunt protocol. As a warning, just because our opponents may know of our capabilities, that doesn't mean we need to announce it to the whole world. We are very certain that none of the world powers want the general public to know about what has become possible.
2. At control. From Case Officer Codename Spinner. Subject. Possible temporal distortion. I'm not sure how urgent this is, as I don't actually know how long I've been looking into this, but I'm fairly sure we're stuck in some kind of time loop. You ought to know where we are and what we're doing, so you know what the limitations will be. But I figured I should at very least send out a memo just in case. If I'm right, you'll either not receive this at all, or you'll receive a whole lot of them. If it's the latter, I sure would appreciate if you could send someone over to extricate us from this little predicament.
End release number RDP 96-00789R003100080001-9.
FOI is written, edited, and produced by Kid Curtis. The theme song, Illuminati Swagger, was produced by Albert Behar and made available on upbeat.io. That's upbeat with 2 P's and IO with an I and an O. This month's episode was titled Unorganized Documents Set 1. It's essentially a conglomeration of ideas I have that work within the world of the story but don't have enough meat for an entire episode. If you like this show and would like to hear more of it, give unto me your firstborn son, and I shall provide you with the entertainment you seek. Thank you for listening.
I'll keep learning what I can, but I'm limited to this. Cripes. Gave myself the business on that one.